Good morning.
Of Tina's take on AI. And I'm very excited today to welcome Jeremiah Parisoe with us. He's with Kingdom Metrics. And I got to tell you, this is such a cool story. You're going to love to hear about this. You remember when you go to church and you think, oh my God, the room is so crowded? Well, Jeremiah is going to tell you how he's bringing an AI tool to really understand what your congregation looks like. So I'm going to turn it over to Jeremiah to talk a little bit about how Kingdom Metrics came about and what is it. And I just think it's one of the coolest stories I've heard so far. So Jeremiah, over to you.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks so much. Yeah, I'll start from the beginning and go back to where even the idea came from. So I have 17 years in finance. I was a consultant to a large bank. We worked with strategy and implementation and leader and worked directly with line leaders to help them make decisions, better decisions. After leaving that industry, I worked for a brief period of time with a startup firm to help them scale and build out some of their infrastructure. And in doing so, they worked directly with churches. I had never worked in the church world. Mine was always, again, background in finance. So I started working and talking with a lot of pastors of these churches. And my brain is always numbers and metrics. And so I would ask these church leaders, what's your KPIs? What's your key performance indicators? What do you measure? How do you measure your mission essentially? And a lot of them would have these different type of metrics they were using. We would always hear one metric consistently across the board was how many people were in attendance during a church service, in the children's group, whatever. And so that was a very consistent KPI for churches. And I would ask a follow-up question: how do you track that? Like, what's your method of doing that? And the answer was always an usher or somebody in the back or a volunteer or whatever. My brain, I'm thinking about my old job where we try to eliminate self-reporting and really use raw, accurate data, right? And so I'm like, man, those ushers, I'm sure they're doing a great job, like, I have no doubt, but they have to be wildly inaccurate, especially when you start thinking about larger buildings, right? If the church service has 500, 600, 800, 1,000, 1,500 people in it, like, that's just got to get really hard to count. So my business partner in Kingdom Metrics, we obviously hadn't. It wasn't a business at that time. We were having coffee, and I was telling him about these KPIs, and he goes, his background is the tech world. He had been actually, if you've ever taken a cruise, that's what his background was in: safety controls and security on cruise ships. Some of the stuff that you might find on a cruise ship, he probably had somewhere along the way created that technology. And so he was telling me, his name's Wayne Bartnick. He was telling me, he's like, man, we could easily put a camera in a venue and then we would just snap a photo and have AI count it. So it's really as simple as that. And so with that idea, we got with a church we knew. It was about I think it's 2,100 seat church. And we put a camera in. They let us put a camera in. We beta tested it there, and it worked awesome. Even the first weekend, it was quite amazing how well it worked. And then we found, we can dive into that in a minute if you want, but we found that the AI was so spot on accurate even after the first week's run, where we were counting ourselves. We ended up being, we both counted that service, that the first service we did. The AI counted it, I counted it, and he counted it. And I was I was 21% higher in my count than the AI, and then he was 12% higher than the AI. So we were each from each other off by 8 percentage points, and then of course we, being quite a bit off of the accurate number. So it was pretty awesome to step into that. That's kind of how we came about.
So let me just reiterate. So what you guys do is you count the congregation for churches using AI. And I think that's amazing because, like you said, the way that it has always traditionally been done is someone stands in the back of the room and sort of counts heads. And imagine, like, what other applications are there? Is there an opportunity to look at demographics, or is an opportunity to look at gender? Or I'm not sure where that line is between counting and information. So maybe I'll
Yeah.
ask you that.
It is a great question. We would like to eventually go there. With the tools we're using right now, we actually could do a bit of binary facial recognition. Like, has this person been here before? Yes, no. Is this male or female? Yes or no, right? We can do that. However, we are very cautious to do that. And we've actually drawn a line in the sand. We're not going to. Now, We do want to get demographic information for the churches, because if the churches did know, what's our average attender is between 40 and 50 years old, if
Yeah.
our average, the tenders that show up on Sunday are typically female, like there's a lot of information that could be gleaned from that. So we want to deliver that at some point, but we won't do it via the facial recognition. And I will share why. And this is a great question. We won't do it because the municipalities have such stringent laws against it. So, for instance, if we had a church in New York City, and we did facial recognition in that regard, we could be fined up to $250 per person per occurrence. Being that the municipalities where our churches are operating are uh, they're just kind of across the board in the United States, we're not going to take that risk.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
unfortunately not
It's
worth
like
it.
it's those recording rules, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So tell me, like, what do churches do with this information that they, with headcount information, which, we were just talking about it. It's like, if you think about it as in terms of a corporation, it allows you to really understand how to budget, etc. So tell me about like how they use this information.
Yeah, there's a multitude of ranges that they could use it, even just the top line number, because that's what we're given. We're given how many people were sitting in that service, just as a raw number. A couple things they can do. There's a lot of health checks in churches, so this is kind of like the basic. Like, is our church is it growing? So this accurate data will give them an idea of a trend over time, right? Is it going up? Is it going down? So that's pretty standard. Additionally, you can take that number, overall attendance in your church service, and you can marry that to your children's church. And when you look at those ratios, a good healthy ratio of attendance in children's church to your total attendance in service is about 20%. If you're at 20 to 25%, you're a healthy church. If you're above that, you're probably a growing church. If you're below that, maybe you have an opportunity to be a little bit more family friendly. So there's some health checks there. I know a few of the churches we work really closely with their finance department. So an algorithm called giving per capita. So how much are your attenders giving per attender? And so what they do is they take our total number that week, they take their number that they received in tithes and offerings that week, and then they divide that out to get a giving per capita. This is so helpful. I'm understanding from the finance department in churches, because they budget every year a certain amount per department for the overall church, etc. And this actually allows them to get a true number. So when we use our AI to count, as I mentioned before, when we started, we were off by about 15, 20%. Well, every volunteer that does their job, they're amazing. We appreciate what they do in the back to count. However, what we've found in all the churches we're working with, they're about 10 to 15% inaccurate. So if you take an inaccurate number and then you start using that as your baseline to marry with your finances, your budgeting becomes a lot more difficult. It actually becomes inaccurate. And we all know that, with money, we want to be good stewards with money, especially in the church. We don't want that to go negatively, right?
Yeah.
So the more accurate we are with the attendance numbers, the more accurate they can be with budgeting. The more accurate they can be with budgeting, the better financial stewards they can be. So I'm hearing that's a huge one.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's one we just the church we've been working with the longest. We just did an analysis for them, and they still capture their attendance via an algorithm. They're a fairly large church. I think they hold about 2,100 people. And this is just a anecdotal story, but I looked at their year over year trend, and their algorithm that they still use, which they know is wrong, it had them year over year declining by 25% in attendance. So as you think about a church, if you're running two services on a Sunday and you're declining by 25%, that means you're you're going down, right? You got to do
Yeah.
different things. You got to create a different strategy, whatever it might be. That was with their algorithm. Our attendance, we've been tracking them now for a little over a year. So I did this analysis. We have them growing by 24% year over year. So that's a huge difference. Yeah. Yeah. And then giving them that data, 24% actually puts them in probably the top 100 churches, growing churches in the United States, per some reporting through other sources. But that's a huge difference. I mean, that's
Yeah.
not only is it more motivating, right? Like, we're doing the right thing here, but it's actually showing them, hey, you are thriving, you're growing your people, and you're doing something really good. So those are just a couple different ways that using accurate attendance really paints a better picture, I think, and helps leaders make better decisions.
What do you think some of the challenges are?
For us right now, it's helping churches know that we exist. We
Yeah.
are quite literally, AI
Doing
is so new.
podcasts like this,
Yeah,
like getting
yeah.
the word out.
No, so got to get the word out. So if you think about, I'm going to use a biblical story, right? In Acts chapter 2, it talks about the church grew when the Spirit came at Pentecost. It talks about the church grew and they added to their people 3,000 more people. So somebody has been counting for 2 millennia, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And that's still how churches are doing it. It's the old way of doing it. Well, we have AI. So one of our biggest hurdles we have to overcome is AI is so new. I mean, I don't think anybody really even thought about AI until ChatGPT dropped, and that was only
2
barely 3
years?
years ago, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
like, yeah, 2,
yeah.
3 years ago.
So it's so
Nobody
new,
even used it till like a year ago.
right? Right. Yeah, unless you're an early adopter. But yeah, yeah, that's right. So now we have AI, and everybody's a little bit like, this is cool. We can do so many things. But churches that churches that we're talking with, we're just trying to get the word out, like, hey, we can do this for you. And what I say is, because you have an usher in the back, and those ushers are amazing. We were talking with an usher at a church that we're looking to get into. His name's Ed. Phenomenal guy, great connector. He's like one of those people that you just say, like, hey, go make friends, and he's doing it. You don't even have to tell him. So he's an usher and he's counting. I don't want to take his job. I think Ed still has a place doing what he's doing, except I want the church to resource him differently. So instead of Ed going along and counting heads, right? I want Ed to go along and look for new faces because
Yeah,
he's
yeah,
so used to doing that, right? Now instead of keeping the number, look for new faces. If you see a new face in that audience, right? I'm taking the count. I'm going to get you a perfect count. But if you see a new face in that audience, well, Ed can easily go to that person after the service is over and say, "Hey, I'm Ed. So glad to have you here. Where you from?" He can connect with them, and that's the thing that we why we even focus with churches. We have a mission because we want churches to thrive because we believe
yeah,
that thriving churches make better communities. And so Ed can
yeah,
help
yeah.
out with that, right?
It's interesting because, like, I would say this, I say it, I think, in every podcast, like, AI is a tool that allows us to be more human because what are humans good at? Connectivity and creativity, right?
Yeah,
That's
that's
what we're
right.
good at.
Yeah.
So it's like such a great opportunity for him to focus on, what the church can deliver rather than, being distracted by, oh, what number am I at?
Yes. Yes. No, you totally
And
get it. Yeah.
yeah, it's totally makes complete sense to me, and I was very excited about this because I thought it was just so unique and interesting, and it doesn't matter what size church you are. I think you really don't really understand your congregation when if it's small or big. It's like it's really important to be able to say have some metrics in order to make decisions that are based in reality on like so it makes perfect sense to me, and I think it's very, very interesting. What do you think some of the opportunities are out, like we talked about in the beginning, like the way that other metrics that you can use that would not violate any privacy rules? Are there other things that you can look at this moment, or that you're thinking or that contemplating, or are you working with churches on some of those ideas?
Yeah, there are certainly other metrics. Matter of fact, I just ran some analytics on a church we work with. We have a little bit over a year worth of data since January 1 on attendance. So I know that our attendance is accurate, right? So take a look at that. And I was just kind of mulling through and going, what's a way that I can pair this up that could help this church? And so I asked for their social media data. So between Facebook and Instagram, ultimately they have other avenues, but I said, can I get all of the Facebook and Instagram week by week, just impressions, engagement, reach, that sort of stuff. So what I did with that information, and I think this is where for me I get excited, right? If we have accurate attendance, we can start doing some of this work. So I ran and I looked for correlations between attendance and their social media engagements, impressions, etc. And what was striking for me, I'll be honest, I was looking at social media as a marketing tool for churches. And when I started running and looking at some of the correlation R squared, I was finding little to no correlation with social media engagement and then attendance. So essentially, what that means, what they were doing with social media, even when their social media was growing and they started posting more and they had more reach and more engagement and their impressions went up dramatically, and their engagement rates went up dramatically, it didn't result in higher attendance. And so
Mm.
it was, for me, it was like eye opening. So then I
Mm,
started looking at it a little bit differently. I'm like, okay, let's flip this for a second. Is attendance growth, because they had attendance growth. I said, is there a correlation between growth in attendance and social media engagement? And there absolutely was,
yeah, yeah, makes
right?
sense.
So, and it actually, so when I think about
It
social
does
media,
make
like
sense. Yeah,
social media is used as a marketing tool in a lot of different ways, right?
yeah, yeah,
But for churches, I think it can be used differently. And what we were finding in this church, it is different. And I don't know if I still want to connect with them, but I don't know if they were intending it to be this way, but
yeah,
they were
yeah,
getting more engagement as the attendance grew. So there was a correlation there. Not a super strong correlation, but a correlation nonetheless. So I'm thinking this is how pastors always said, at least the ones that I've talked to, they're like, I get an opportunity on Sunday to connect with the people and hopefully help them make it through the week, you know, as a
yeah,
disciple of Christ. I'm now starting to see social media for a church is a discipleship tool and less of a
yeah, yeah,
marketing tool, right?
yeah,
And so this is the stuff that I think with proper, accurate attendance that we can deliver through Kingdom Metrics, through our AI systems, that they can start doing this analysis and start finding ways to do it. So an idea that this is just totally an idea. I'm not saying churches have to do this, but it's social media can now be their bridge to say, hey, we're staying connected with you during the week. Just like my wife's grandparents, they love looking at the photos of their grandkids on Facebook, right? That's what they always say. Like,
yeah,
I feel so connected to you. We live 3 hours away. And I get to see the kids grow up because of Facebook, right? So that's the
yeah,
tool and how I think churches can really utilize social media, at least this church, right?
yeah,
It's
yeah.
one analysis. I'm not saying it's the same for every church,
No, no,
but
I think it makes sense though because I don't know. I also think that it's a great way to communicate, yeah, even if it's an idea of the day, right?
right, right.
Something like that. It's like something that can just put a smile on someone's face or give them inspiration that morning, like
Yeah,
whatever it is.
yeah.
It's a great tool. And that's not marketing, that's communication,
That's
right?
communication.
That's,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. You're right.
Those are
I
the
think
kind, yeah.
so our kind of slogan at Kingdom Metrics is that we want to help churches move their people from attending to truly belonging. And just
Yeah,
by
yeah.
even this data analysis, I'm like, oh, this is a way, like you said, like it's that one thing. We know we go through things that week. Like we work for a company and our boss is on top of us and it's like, oh my God, I just want to scream. And then maybe I pop at lunch, I pop into my Instagram and I see my church and they're posting something about, hey, having a tough day today. Just remember,
Yeah, yeah.
right? Like we suffer for Christ or whatever. I don't know. But it's that like this is an extension of discipleship,
Yeah, yeah.
reminding me that I have a purpose and a place in this company to do the things that I'm built to do in the name of Christ, right? So,
Yeah.
yeah,
It's very exciting. I think it's really got so much potential, Jeremiah. So congratulations.
yeah,
Now,
thank you.
when did you start the firm? Has it been over a year?
Not yet. Well, okay. So we started beta testing last October. So it has been over a year
Just about a year,
to
yeah.
learn, but we didn't actually start even thinking about selling it until February of this year,
Yeah,
25.
yeah.
So once we beta tested, saw that there was real possibility here, and then we were kind of doing some market analysis on ourselves, and then with other pastors we knew and talked to them about pricing and stuff like that. Because ultimately, we want to price this at, if I'm being really real, we want to come at business the way of Christ would, right? Like we don't want to price anybody out. Now,
Yeah.
our church target market is generally churches that seat over 200 in a service. I think it matters more there, but it matters all the way across the board. Proper attendance does. But we started looking at pricing. And so we want to be priced in a way that's healthy, where we aren't just giving it away because we want to we want to be able to live and feed our families, but also that's not too much for a church to afford. And so we looked at that and we have a goal to bring pricing down as technology costs, you know, go down over time. We want to actually lower the cost of our product, not increase it, right? So we're constantly thinking like, what does that future state look like? And so those are just a couple of things that we've been thinking about. But as a company, we want to approach this almost like a ministry effort. Like we're an extension of a church because we want to help churches. There's other applications outside of the church industry and we're aware of them, but we feel called to the church world.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I think that's like a perfect spot to stop.
That's
It's like,
fair. Yeah.
I was like, wait a second, what else can I ask him? I was like, I'm like ending.
That's good. No, I love it.
Yeah, that's a great spot. So, thank you so much for being on the call today. We have this is sponsored by the AI, and I really appreciate your time and anything I can do to help with your mission. I think is such a it's so interesting, and I think it has huge potential. Congratulations on the decision to make this move, and I think you're doing a really great service for the community. So,
Awesome.
thank you so much for
Thanks
that.
so much, Tina. Appreciate it.
Any final words, Jeremiah, from you? Or your contact info is going to be on the description.
Yeah, awesome. I mean, for anybody that's watching this, if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. We, just like any small business owner, like we want to talk about what we do because we're passionate about it. But ultimately, no, we are super passionate about helping churches grow and helping move their people from attenders to truly belonging. So, thank you.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. And just hang on a second while I think the process.